In the year 1582, a European visitor arrived on the docks of the Portuguese trading settlement of Macau in South China. His objective? To convert China, a nearly 4,000-year-old culture, to Christianity. His name was Matteo Ricci. Ricci was born in Macerata, Italy in 1552. In his early years, he studied law, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, and later went on to join the Society of Jesus, commonly known as the Jesuits. When Ricci was just 25, he decided to sign up for a missionary expedition to India and beyond. He set off from Lisbon in 1578, before arriving in the Portuguese colony of Goa in southwest India. He spent 4 years in Goa before arriving in Macau. Once there, he immersed himself in the Chinese language and way of life. However, he quickly discovered that Chinese culture and customs were so ancient and deep-rooted that it would prove almost impossible to radically change the central beliefs of the Chinese with Christianity. To counteract this problem, he intertwined Confucian ideas with Christian beliefs and spread the message of his belief that China and its ideals revolved around God and that Christianity was the fulfillment of their faith. However, Ricci's attempts to combine and bridge the religion and beliefs of the Catholic Church and China were rejected by the Vatican. But Matteo had fallen in love with China so much that he embraced the Chinese way of life and remained there until his eventual death in 1610. His ultimate goal was to convert China to Christianity, but ironically, it appears as though China converted him. During his 27-year stay, he describes the political landscape, traditions, customs, and culture of China in great detail and gives some thought-provoking comparisons to Europeans. His account goes as follows. It seems worthwhile to record a few more ways in which the Chinese differ from the Europeans. It is remarkable when we stop to consider it that in a kingdom of almost limitless expanse and innumerable population, abounding in resources of every kind, that although they have a well-equipped army and navy that could easily conquer neighbouring nations, neither the emperor nor his people ever think of waging wars of aggression. They are quite content with what they have and have no ambitions of conquest. In this respect, they seem to me very different from the Europeans, who frequently disturb their neighbours and are envious of what others enjoy. While the nations of the West seem to be entirely consumed with the idea of supreme domination, they cannot even preserve what their ancestors have bequeathed them, as the Chinese have done for thousands of years. This country is so thoroughly covered by an intersecting network of rivers and canals that it is possible to travel almost anywhere by water. Hence, an almost incredible number of boats of every variety pass hither and thither. Indeed, there are so many of them that one of the writers of our day does not hesitate to affirm that there are as many people living on the water as there are dwellers on land. This may sound like an exaggeration, and yet it's all but expresses the truth, as it would seem if one were to travel here only by water. In my opinion, it might be said with greater truth and without fear of exaggeration that there are as many boats in this kingdom as can be counted up in all the rest of the world. Two or three things are certainly unknown to Europeans, of which I must give a brief account. First, there is a certain bush from the leaves of which is decocted that celebrated drink, known to the Chinese, the Japanese, and their neighbours as tea. Its use cannot be of long duration among the Chinese, as no ideography in their old books designates this particular drink, and their writing characters are all ancient. Indeed, it might be that the same plant can be found in our own fields. Here, they gather its leaves in the springtime and place them in a shady place to dry. And from the dried leaves, they brew a drink, which they use at meals, and which is served to friends when they come to visit. On such occasions, it is served continually, as long as they remain together, engaged in conversation. This beverage is sipped rather than drunk, and it is always taken hot. It is not unpleasant to the taste, being somewhat bitter, and it is usually considered to be wholesome, even if taken frequently. Matteo Ricci died in May of 1610 in Beijing, aged 57. According to Ming Dynasty law, foreigners that died in China had to be buried in Macau. But a Spanish Jesuit named Diego de Pantoja, who worked closely with Matteo Ricci in China, was given the responsibility to ask the Ming court for permission for Ricci to be buried in Beijing, in return for his contributions to China. His wish was granted, and Ricci was entombed in the Zhonglanlu neighbourhood of Beijing. His tomb can still be visited today.